Hello and welcome back. My name is Angelise Prince, founder and finance manager here at Galatians Bookkeeping. And today we are talking about all things accounts receivable. You might be wondering, when a bookkeeper joins your team or when you're working with a finance manager or an accountant, what does accounts receivable mean? What does that actually do for your business? How does it help your business in any way, shape, or form? And so we're going to talk about just exactly that today. So I will not bore you with a definition of what is accounts receivable, but I'll give you a very quick and easy way to remember what accounts receivables are compared to accounts payables. So anytime you're thinking about the world of accounting and its receivables versus payables, receivables are the money that your business is receiving. It is coming into the business. And so you're receiving those business funds into your account. So accounts receivables has everything to do with the money that is coming in. Usually you'll hear things like AR, which is just an abbreviation for accounts receivables. You'll hear receivables, you'll hear income, you'll hear invoices. There are so many different words that go along with accounts receivables. But just as a quick overview and a basic overview for your understanding, that is what accounts receivables are. Now, most of what I'm going to be talking about is what we do here at Galatians Bookkeeping, and that's only because that's the most knowledge that I have is what we do here and how we support our clients in terms of receivables. But you will see trends of this with other accounting professionals and even within your own accounting department if you already have one. When we think about how the money actually gets into your bank account, there are a myriad of ways that we can be thinking about this. From an accounting standpoint, our accounting team is responsible for ensuring that those funds land in your bank account within the specified time that is appropriate for your business. So this could be on a monthly basis, it could be on an annual basis, it could be on a quarterly basis. Whatever ramifications that you have set up within your business, the accounting team is responsible for ensuring that those funds land in your business account. I'm just going to quickly touch on a few of the different billing types that exist, which would require your accounting team to act in one way versus the other. So the first way is having a billing sheet that is updated on a monthly basis. So what does this mean? This is something that's usually in an Excel spreadsheet or something in your accounting software that lists every single client that exists and that is connected to your business with their attached service price or service fee that they pay you. So if you have ABC company and you charge them $1,500 a month, the next company might be Apple Studios and charge them $3,000 per month. The next client might be Lemonade Incorporated. You charge them $15,000 per month, and it'll continue to go down like that until you have all of the clients on that particular sheet. And typically, this might be something where every single client is charged on a monthly basis, and we just want to keep tabs on which client is charged what amount and has that invoice gone out to that particular client. If a particular client wants to add on additional services for a given month, we would update those numbers as applicable. And this would also require a collaboration between the accounting team and the operations team, right? So if there is knowledge that a particular person on the team has where a client wants to add on additional services, we as the accounting team would need to know that so that we can include that in the next invoice, ensure that the company is compensated for the additional services that they are providing. The next billing type might be clients who are being billed per hour. Now, this setup might be most applicable for a lawyer or a law firm or an interior design firm, a construction company, something of the kind where the project and the scope of the service that is being provided is dependent on variable factors, right? So when you're building a house, there are multiple factors that go into account. And so sometimes it can be a little hard to say that you're going to charge your client one flat fee. What if the windows don't come in on time? Or what if the lumber doesn't come in on time? Well, those are additional hours that need to be billed to your client. Same thing for a law firm or a law practice. If the judge or the actual client that is being represented makes a decision on either spectrum, that could impact the amount of hours that the given lawyer or counsel will spend on that particular case. And so those are some of the examples where billing hourly might be more appropriate for that particular client. If you are a company that decides to bill your clients on an hourly basis, there are variable circumstances that are taking place throughout the life of your relationship with your particular client. And so here we have two options. The first option is what we have listed here on the screen, which is if you decide to bill your client on a monthly basis in arrears. So if you're billing in arrears, that simply means that you're billing your client for work that has already been completed. So if we have this example for a given month, we have each week broken down. After each week has gone by, you have the total amount of hours that has been billed for the entire month, which in this example is 158 hours. And you're able to see, noted here in the circle in orange, that you would send out an invoice for the billing of 150 hours. To get the total of what that invoice would be, you would simply take your hourly rate, which could be $100, $200, $500, $1,000, whatever your hourly bill amount is. You would multiply that by 150 hours, and that will be the invoice amount that your client would pay for the end of the month. The next example is if you decided to, instead of having one lump sum monthly invoice for your client to pay, you could break it up into bi-weekly schedules. And so if we look at weeks 1 and week 2, which is 48 hours and 30 hours, we would bill those 2 weeks on the following Friday. So you would bill for 78 hours on week 3. And then on week 5, you would bill for 60 hours that was accumulated during weeks 3 and week 4. Now, there were hours that were accumulated for the last week of the month. And so those remaining 20 hours from week 5 would be billed during the following 2-week period. Now, all of these billing schedules would be dependent upon the relationship with your client. So if this were the end of the month and you were looking to close out your relationship with this client, perhaps you would want to include those 20 hours within the 60-hour invoice that you're going to send on the last week of the month. But it just depends on what the extent of the relationship is like with your client. If we look at the second option, which you would not be getting paid in arrears, you would be getting paid up front. So within this option, let's say as an example, you would want to charge your client $5,000 as a retainer, which they would pay up front, and you would bill against this retainer as you work your particular hours throughout the month. There is an opportunity to differentiate between, let's say, the lawyer's hourly rate and a paralegal's hourly rate. Maybe a lawyer's hourly rate is $300 per hour, whereas a paralegal's hourly rate is $100 per hour. That kind of gets into a little bit of a nuance and some more details as to how this whole retainer process could work, but just wanted to briefly let you know that there is an option there. If you were to go with being paid up front, from there, you would send that invoice, which is highlighted here in orange. You would send that invoice for $5,000 at the beginning of the month, and that would allow your client to have 50 hours that have been already paid for up front. Now, as we see how that breaks down throughout the month and as the weeks go on, we can see that at the end of each week, you have the amount of hours that have been worked each week, which totals up to 60 hours worked, okay? And so again, you've already been paid that amount at the beginning of the month, and you've worked 10 hours over what was originally paid for upfront. That's completely okay, as long as there's agreement between you and your client, of course. So what you could do is have those remaining 10 hours be charged during the following month that is upcoming, or again, depending on the type of relationship that you have with your client. If you're going to be closing out your relationship with this client, you can go ahead and send over the additional 10 hours to be invoiced at the end of the month. The next billing type would be automatic payments. These are payments that are the same. They never change when you bill the exact same amount, regardless of what is going on with or without the client. You bill the exact same amount every single month. So if your invoice amount is $3,000 every single month, you are going to automatically charge your client $3,000 every single month. Now, of course, if circumstances change, you can definitely talk about an adjustment with the invoice if there are any ad hoc fees or expenses that need to be included in that next invoice. But for the most part, you're gonna send out that same invoice every single month for the same amount, month over month, consistently. The fourth and final billing type that I wanna touch on during this video is a custom invoice. So this might be something that is proposal driven. So kind of going back to the example of maybe an interior design firm or a construction company. If you're building a 3-bedroom house, that might be a little bit different than if you're building a 5-bedroom house that's on a ranch that has different elevation levels. There are different ramifications and different conceptual ideas that you have to think about and take into account when you're building out that proposal. And so you're not gonna bill the same amount for the 3-bedroom house as you are for the 5-bedroom house, right? So this is where you will build out a custom invoice, and typically this is where you'll see a proposal come into play, where you will identify based on your expertise in the field. You'll identify all of the details that need to go into this proposal, the services that you will provide for your client, and you will also need to identify what pricing makes the most sense for that particular client. Now, when it comes to pricing and pricing out your services or your invoices or your proposals, our team can definitely help with that. And what we do is we do the research, we do the data, we do the analytics to see exactly what amount would be most appropriate for you to charge that particular client. And then even if you have already established your pricing, we still like to dig into, is your pricing efficient? Is there an effective ROI on what you're charging your clients? Do you need to increase or decrease your pricing based on what's going on in your business and all of those things? Custom invoices typically go along with proposals or some type of documentation that lays out exactly how you are going to service the client. And again, this could come in a myriad of different industries. We've seen it within wedding planners, architects, interior designers, even medical practices can include that as well. There are a myriad of different ways that you can build out your custom invoice based on the need of the client or your customer. Once we identify who your customer is, what they need to be charged, and when they need to be charged, we then get to work on sending out those invoices. But once we have all of that information and the invoices are built out by our team, we move forward with processing or sending those invoices. On one hand, if we're processing an invoice, this means that we already have credit card information on file with a credit card authorization so that we're not legally liable, so that you're not legally liable as an organization. And so we're processing those invoices as necessary. And on the other hand, we are sending out those invoices for your clients to pay before the due date. Now, when it comes to timing of invoices, there are a myriad of options that you can select, and you can send out invoices on the 1st and the 15th of the month. You can send out invoices on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. You can do net 30 terms, which net 30 terms, when we talk about net 10, net 5, net 30 days, net 90 days, net 100 days, what we're saying is that from the day that you send out the invoice, the client or the customer has that many days to fulfill the invoice. And so if you're sending out a net 90 invoice, that means that the client has 90 days to fulfill that invoice. And the next thing is following up. We do take on the responsibility of following up with your clients until the invoice has been paid. However, we are not a collection agency, and so if we're seeing that invoices are going without payment for a prolonged amount of time, we will include you as a CEO or whatever leader is most appropriate so that you can have that conversation with your client. We don't in any way, shape, or form facilitate the process of sending unpaid invoices to collections or even acting as a collection agency, but we do follow up on your behalf and make sure that your client has everything that they need in order to be successful and be able to pay the invoice. But really think about, from your perspective, would you want someone, if you were in a hard spot financially, would you want someone to send an invoice to collections? Probably not. And so again, depending on the ramifications and the situation and prayer, that's always why prayer is so important. I would not be so quick or so hasty to send those invoices to collections, because you just never know what someone is going through. When we do approach your client to follow up on the invoice, it's not like, hey, you owe this money. It's more so, hey, we just want to make sure that you have everything that you need. We're here for you. you have any questions for us? Do you need a little bit more time? Do you need some more resources? Are you waiting on something from the operations team or the fulfillment team? Like, how can we help you? How can we support you so that you can be successful? We're not white hot angry when we're reaching out to your client. We definitely want to be respectful and offer that level of additional service to your client as well. That brings up a sub question that a lot of people ask us, which is, are you going to send these emails out from the Galatians Bookkeeping email or your email? We do highly recommend, depending on where your business is, we do highly recommend that you have an accounting email. So this is accounting@yourcompanyname.com. That is controlled by our team. That way you can have that seamlessness in terms of your company branding. And so your client is easily able to say, hey, I have a question about billing. Let me go ahead and send an email to accounting@abccompany.com. One thing that people ask is, how are you going to get record of the check that comes through when a client pays via check? And it's very simple. You deposit it into the bank. Depending on your bank, usually the bank will provide a picture of that check on your bank statement. Again, this is not for every bank, but depending on what bank you have, I know Bank of America is one of them, and maybe even Chase and Blue Vine, they will take a picture of the check and put it on your bank statement or in your online banking portal. This way you have access to what the check looks like, where it came from, who paid it. If you don't have a bank that automatically takes pictures or records and documents pictures with the bank statement, I would humbly ask if you could take a picture of that check and just send it to us in an email. You don't even have to have a title or a subject line in the email. You wouldn't believe how many emails we get with no subject line that just has a picture of a check or that just has a simple note saying, hey, this check came in, or whatever the case. So you can send us an email there, and then we're able to then get it into the applicable accounting software so that all things are documented. Some of the things that we navigate with our clients are the onboarding processes that you may have with your client, right? So as you are onboarding a new client, that client might say, hey, we need a W-9 form and a direct deposit form in order to pay your invoice. Well, us as the accounting team, our role is very crucial in that, because if we're not sending out that W-9 form, if we're not sending out that direct deposit form, it can cause a delay in your company being able to receive the funds that it needs to in order to begin operations on the project. And so there are a myriad of ways that we can talk about operations around onboarding new clients. There are one-day boards and different opportunities, different platforms where we assist with the organization of you onboarding new clients so that everyone is aware of what's going on and who should be charged what and what should go out to whom, so on and so forth. We, as your accounting team, again, are there to support your client and to ensure that they are successful. And so we're providing the W-9 form, we're providing the direct deposit form, and any other additional documentation that may be required. They might require a bank verification letter. They might require a myriad of different items and checkpoints before they are able to process your payment. And so it's really important and really crucial that you always have someone who is able to navigate all of these details, because you as a CEO and as a business leader, you've already won the client and you're on to the next one, or you're trying to figure out how to get into the operations of fulfilling the service for that client that you have just won. And so again, we just like to iterate and stress that it's always so crucial and critical for you to have a team who is ready, willing, and able and ready to go and say, okay, great, you got the client, we've got all the details in the backup office. So those are all the ways that we support our clients within the house of accounts receivable. And I hope that this was a helpful and informational video for you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to head over to galatiansbookkeeping.com, where we can help you get back to the work that you love so that you can get out of the weeds of all these details and all these ramifications that go into the work that we love and cherish so dearly. And so again, if you have any questions about accounts receivable, feel free to head over to galatiansbookkeeping.com. And I look forward to talking to you guys real soon. Be blessed.